I'm Kevin Robson. I spent 25 years running my own group of businesses, sold out about 15 years ago, and since then have reincarnated as various things, not least as a marketer and marketing consultant, but also as a university teacher and researcher. In 1952, at the Exhibition of Britain, manufacturing as a percentage of our GDP represented about 48%. It was nearly half of our total economic output. Today, it's about 12%. And services have gone in the opposite direction. We now have about 79% of our GDP is actually concerned with delivering a service. And a service, incidentally, is something that adds value, but doesn't add to your assets. It's an interesting way of thinking about what it really is. The reason why manufacturing is where it is for lots of, there are lots of factors at play here, not least the disaggregation of the manufacturing chain. Assembly has gone abroad where labour is cheaper, but also we're now actually manufacturing 30% more from this small amount of our GDP than we were in the 1980s. Our manufacturing base has become enormously, massively and wonderfully efficient. We are very, very good at manufacturing technology, design of the technology, design of the product. We also have manu services emerging these days where people will manufacture a product but also offer a service in its delivery. Rolls-Royce aero engines are a very good example of that. Rolls-Royce will sell an aircraft engine to an airline and monitor it actually in service, whether it's flying or whether it's on the ground, using computer telemetry, satellite telemetry. They can actually monitor the progress of the engine. They can tell if it needs spare parts. They can schedule servicing to optimize the downtime. And manual service is another issue which is actually clouding the relatively small amount of manufacturing that we do. We are excellent at manufacturing, but we are not at all good at delivering service, that 4/5 of our economy. Let me just show you this.
The British pride themselves on being the rudest, most unhelpful people in the world. Receptionist Carol Beer is working at this hospital in Pennsylvania.
Hello. This is my daughter. She's a big, brave girl, and she's going to have an operation today.
Name?
Tell the nice lady your name.
Danielle.
Danielle what?
Danielle Lloyd.
Age?
Nearly 6.
You're 5.
Yes.
We'll say 5 then. Address? Where do you live?
With Mommy and Daddy.
1772 Lincoln Road.
We got there. Putting your details in now.
Danielle's going to have her tonsils removed.
I've got her down for a double hip replacement.
Oh, no, well, there must be some kind of mistake.
It's a wonderful caricature of the British way of delivering service. And I always use it because I think, apart from the fact that it makes people laugh, it points up some enormously interesting issues. There are undoubtedly, certainly in Britain, cultural issues about delivering service. There is the unofficial national anthem that says Britons never, never, never shall be slaves, I think speaks enormously of that. And if you think about it, it's only 100 years ago that to be in service was to be a servant. And I think that strikes deep into the British psyche and is one of the core problems that we have in our really relatively abysmal service delivery processes. There are process design issues. I mean, how do you get a 5-year-old girl booked in for a double hip replacement? There is something going wrong in the process there. Nobody's actually working it through. There are skills issues. Carol Beer is quite unbelievably unskilled in delivering service. But there are organizational issues behind all of that, and this is what I want to try and get to, and this is what I'm getting to in my book. I argue that organizations need overall service ability, not just to be serviceable, that is efficient, but to be service able. And this is a rhetorical question: what's the difference? The story of serviceability, how it came about in my mind, is that one morning I was driving, about 12 years ago now, to Durham University Business School, where I was doing some research. And there'd been some civil unrest the day before. In the Midlands somewhere, I can't remember the details of it, but some gangs of feral young men had been causing difficulties. And the BBC on the Today programme had predictably brought out the Army General to say what was wrong with youth today. And apart from all the stuff that he talked about, the one thing that sent a bulb off in my mind was when he said this. He said, the only difference between an angry gang of feral young men and a platoon of soldiers, who incidentally are almost the same age, if you look at the pictures, is morale. And morale is based on four things: a trust in your leaders to make the right decisions, a trust in your mates to watch your back, a belief in the cause of what you're fighting for, and a pride in the job. That is the difference, and this is the thing that gave me the idea about serviceability. I started with these four elements and started thinking about how we could apply this to our organizations in the civilian world. I reasoned that pride in the job would actually result in a sense of professionalism in customer serving staff, that trust in leaders would lead to initiative. If you think about it, if you trust your leaders, you can make decisions, sometimes bending the rules a little bit, in the interest of the customer. And actually, the interest of the customer are the interest of the organization, are they not? And if you trust your leaders, you can do that. Many people don't work under that regime. That if you believe in the cause, you will be engaged, not only with the customer, but with the organization itself. And if you trust in your colleagues, then you will have a sense of involvement with the organization and what's going on. But then I thought, well, pride in the job is really about getting the people right. These are now managerial issues. The trust in leaders is about, obviously, effective leadership, and I'll deal with that in a moment. The belief in the cause is about clarity of purpose, not just strategy, not just mission, vision statements, but clarity of purpose in what the organization is doing. And the trust in colleagues is a matter of appropriate organization. And if we just take them in the same order again, in the management section, getting the people right, it's about modernized management. Because we started industrialization, because Britain was at the forefront of the Industrial Revolution, in fact, the Industrial Revolution happened here, we, in a sense, invented management. And management became was very dictatorial, very controlling, very reductionist. It didn't think about the people as individuals, only wanted to look at the numbers. That leadership, in a similar way, was dictatorial. Often people would lead from above or from in the front, or sometimes from behind. What I'm arguing about is the more modern understanding, Robert Greenleaf talks about this, of servant leadership. Servant leaders are people who lead from within the body of the people. They act as primus inter pares, first amongst equals. Indeed, our cabinet government system is based on that Roman model. The cabinet carry collective responsibility, and the prime minister is the prime, the primus, the first, and leads the cabinet in that sense. So we need a form of servant leadership in our organizations. The clarity of purpose is all about, certainly about mission and vision and strategy, but it's also about values. And making sure that those values are clearly articulated and that the people who work for the organization buy into those values and therefore have a belief in the cause. And taking it out further, I won't go through all of these because time is limited, but in terms of getting the people right, the modernized management idea, principle amongst that is actually getting the right people in the first place. The Americans have a lovely expression that says hire for attitude, train for skills. In fact, in Britain, we tend to do exactly the opposite. We draw up a job specification and a person specification, and then we try and shoehorn a unique individual into that process. And frankly, I have always felt that it was never the right way to do things. In terms of organization, it's about encouraging teamwork. And not just teams operating as groups, but in a sense the whole organization operating as a team, connected. A relatively boundaryless organization. So many of our organizations are predicated on the bureaucratic model, everything in its department, nobody speaks to anybody else, decisions have to go up through the decision-making structure and back down to where they need to be. Those sort of organizations can never be responsive to customer needs. And in terms of clarity of purpose, it's also about engendering purposefulness in the organization. People need to have that desire, as it were, to come to work on a Monday morning. They need to believe in the cause that does that. And of course, I've already explained about servant leadership. Servant leaders not only trust and empower, but they're also trustworthy. You can see that this is actually about organizational design. And when we get them all right, ultimately we produce this idea that I have of service ability, where these individual characteristics manifest themselves. As a model of understanding, it gives us a way of thinking about how to deal with these issues in organizations. Some organizations will be very good at belief in the cause. The National Health Service is a wonderful example of that. In a sense, health gets delivered despite the system. It's because the people who are delivering it really do believe that they are offering a real social service. But it's an onion model, it's a layered model. There are corporate policy issues to do with values. There are executive issues to do with initiating the procedures which will get those values working. There are management issues which will facilitate that process, and so on, to create this culture of pride in the job, belief in the cause, trust in your leaders, trust in your colleagues, and which will manifest in the individual's customer-facing employee having all of these individual characteristics of initiative, professionalism, management, and engagement and involvement. And just to finalize the whole theory of it, what I'm saying here is that customer service and service process design are very important elements, but we need serviceability. We need this driver to actually connect the two basic things which designers do, service process design, and trainers do, customer service. But until we get the culture right, it's not going to have any coherence. So in a very quick blast, that is serviceability. I'll just leave you with another little postscript from Carol Beer, if I may.
Well, thank you so much. You've been just great.
Oh, could I borrow a moment of your time to fill out the customer service questionnaire? Would you say that I've been A, very helpful, B, extremely helpful, or C, helpful?
Thank you so much for listening to me.